Good morning, Mr. Rayner, and welcome to St. Paul's Preschool. Do you have any respiratory symptoms such as a cold or fever?
No.
Have you or anyone in your household been in contact with anyone with COVID-19?
Nope.
Is anyone in your household sick or being quarantined due to COVID-19?
No.
Have you traveled in the last 14 days?
No.
Great. Good morning, Mark Haley, and welcome to St. Paul's Preschool. You're right, I'm going to take your temperature, okay?
Bye.
Bye, Haley.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. I'm sitting in for the Premier today, the Honorable David Burt, because he has a standing engagement every Wednesday evening that is normally only broken under very extraordinary circumstances. Today, like every other Wednesday, the Premier is busy attending his son's football training, which he does every week. This government supports youth and family life, and fathers being with their sons and daughters. So the Premier gets a bye today. He gets a pass and an excuse to not be here. And that is with our blessings and pride. I am joined today by the Minister of Health, the Honorable Kim Wilson, and the Minister of Education, Deella Rebane. I will now hand over the podium to Minister Wilson, who will give the usual COVID-19 update and speak on other matters related to the pandemic. Minister Wilson?
Thank you, Deputy. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you all made it through the hurricane with minimal discomfort and minimal damage to your properties. Today, I can report that there were 818 test results received by the Ministry of Health, with one being positive for COVID-19. The new positive case to which I refer is a non-resident traveler who tested positive on their day 4 test, having arrived on the BA flight 2233 on the 11th of September 2020. The case is isolated and contact tracing has begun. Bermuda now has 178 total confirmed positive cases, and their status is as follows. 164 have recovered, and there are 5 active cases who are all under active public health monitoring. None are hospitalized or in critical care, and the total deceased remains at 9. The average age of all of our confirmed positive cases is 57, and the age range of all of our positive cases is from 10 to 101 years of age. Overall, 51% of the cases are black, 40% are white, and 9% are other or unknown. The sources of all of our local cases are as follows. 67 are imported, 90 are local transmission with a known contact, 19 are local transmission with an unknown contact, and 2 are under investigation. Bermuda's country status remains at sporadic cases, and the 7-day average of our real-time reproduction number is less than 1. I want to remind residents wishing to travel abroad that a COVID-19 test taken in Bermuda before you travel will not count as your pre-departure test for re-entry into Bermuda. Once you leave Bermuda and you enter a jurisdiction with community transmission of COVID-19, such as the United States or England, you are at risk of being exposed. The pre-departure test needs to be taken in the overseas jurisdiction in which you have visited prior to returning to Bermuda. Residents who do not take a pre-departure test returning home will require to quarantine for 8 days. I would also like to commend my Ministry of Health team for successful management of the COVID testing program following Hurricane Paulette. This involves significant logistical reorganization of testing and communication with travelers to advise them of their new testing times, as COVID-19 testing was, of course, canceled on Monday. Yesterday, following the departure of Hurricane Paulette from the area, PROT testing facility opened at 10 a.m. to recommence COVID-19 testing for travelers. Also, the Herring Bay testing facility was also open as per normal during their original schedule. Additionally, the hotline was back up and running yesterday to answer questions, assist with travel authorization processes, and provide the same resilient support that they have done over these past several difficult months. I should note that if travelers are unable to receive emails at this time, they can contact the call center at 444-2498, and they will be provided with the revised scheduled test time. With Hurricane Teddy tracking towards Bermuda, it is important for travelers to be aware that further testing times and locations may change as the storm gets closer to our shores. People scheduled for traveling testing and pop-up testing may need to be rescheduled, so it is important that for those individuals to check their emails and stay abreast of the latest developments. Those travelers due for testing that are under quarantine and will be affected by the closure should remain quarantined and should not take it upon themselves to attend a testing site and date of their choosing. Reopening of testing sites and government labs following the storm will be communicated via press conferences or press releases and posted on the government portal and social media channels as soon as possible. Once again, the Ministry of Health is reminding residents that all restaurant patrons must wear a mask at all times when not seated at their tables. This includes entering the premises and exiting, as well as when using the restroom. The wearing of masks in these instances is compulsory, and dining establishments are required to enforce these rules. I would also like to remind members of the public to please provide your contact details at businesses that you visit, such as bars, restaurants, gyms, salons, theaters, and recreational charter boats, in case the Ministry of Health needs to contact you about a possible COVID-19 exposure. For more information about contact tracing or anything related to COVID, please go to coronavirus.gov.bm. I end by reminding us all to avoid the 3 C's: closed spaces, crowded spaces, and close contact settings. Again, stay safe, Bermuda. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Wilson, and thank you to your team for the extraordinary work they've done to get the testing centers back up running quickly after the hurricane. So their work is commended, and thank you very much. We will now hear from Minister Deanna Rebane about the reopening of schools tomorrow and the plans around that. Minister Rebane.
Thank you, Deputy Premier. All public, pre-primary, middle, and senior schools, in addition to Dame and Success Academy, will open for our students tomorrow, Thursday, September 17th, 2020. All students are to report to school in uniform at 8:30 a.m., ready to participate in the entry screening, which involves taking temperature and responding to 4 COVID-19 questions. Yesterday, staff from the Department of Education's Facilities Section, staff from the Ministry of Public Works Estates Section, as well as school principals and custodians carried out assessments of school buildings post-Hurricane Paulette. I'm pleased to report that our school buildings fared well in the hurricane. There was power loss, water seepage in some schools, and debris found on school grounds. But all in all, there was no significant damage to our school buildings. Some schools will still need grass cut, debris removed, etc., but this will not impact tomorrow's opening of schools. In a combined effort, which started yesterday and which continued today, staff from Agriculture and Parks, Public Works, and school custodians are working to address these issues created by Hurricane Paulette so that our schools will be ready to receive children tomorrow. I'm making this one request of commuters in the morning and afternoon, and that is to use patience and caution in our school zones. Schools will be fully operational, and there will be congestion in these areas. I'm encouraging the public to use extra care, especially since we have implemented new safety and health entry procedures at our public schools across the island. The public needs to be aware that all schools, pre-primary, middle, and senior, will open at 8:30, and we will be advising additional caution in the areas that have 2 schools. One such example is Northlands Primary School and the Barclay Institute. Commuters are advised that it's likely to be high volume of traffic on Barclay Road in Pembroke between the hours of 8 a.m. and 9:15 a.m. on weekdays. Parents have also been asking about bus schedules. And the bus schedules is being continually updated and can be viewed on www.gov.bm/bus. I want to take this time to thank our facility staff, the custodians, and those from the Ministry of Works. They have worked incredibly hard pre-hurricane to ensure our schools did not suffer any significant damage. They have also worked very hard and under tremendous pressure post-hurricane to have our schools repaired and cleaned to be ready to accept our students tomorrow. I'd also like to thank our educators who have done the hard work necessary to prepare for students to return. I'm sure they have missed their students as much as the students have missed them. In closing, I wish all staff and students a very safe and successful start to the school year. Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Minister Rebane. The work done by all the persons who have assisted all of our 37 school properties to get back running is a testament to the dedication of all of our educators and those who work with them. So well done, and thank you to all of those public servants who have participated in getting our schools back on track. I know the minister and his team have been working quite a bit of time, working and consulting with teachers and those who represent teachers to make sure this process goes well. We know there are concerns perhaps by some, but I am confident and the government is confident the minister and the ministry have taken the right steps to approach this process. So thank you and well done, Minister. Today, we received an update from Belco around 5 p.m. There are currently, as of 5 p.m. today, 702 customers without service. They are in the following parishes: Sands 23, Southampton 127, Warwick 57, Pembroke 144, Devonshire 129, Smiths 14, Hamilton Parish 25, and St. George's 5. And it's quite possible that as we've been sitting here, more people have been bought online. So that number 702 may actually be reduced due to the time that we've been here today. Belco, of course, will continue to provide updates on their website as they work to get everybody back online. Another note, earlier today, the Honorable Premier on Twitter did issue an apology to commuters who were affected by the unfortunate situation of bus service not in operation today. The Minister of Transport has confirmed that buses will run tomorrow. The modifications to our schools' implementation of innovation policies, procedures, and regulations have proved to be resilient and agile enough to ensure a safe reopening of schools tomorrow, and also fair enough to hold a general election. As a result of Hurricane Paulette's extended impact on our country, to ensure as many Bermudians vote as possible and to preserve and defend our robust democracy, the Parliamentary Registrar has extended the advance poll for seniors, travelers, and incapacitated persons to vote by 1 day, which is Saturday. To be clear, voters who are voting in the advance poll can vote today, Wednesday, the 16th of September, also Thursday, Friday, and now Saturday, at any time between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. I would like to advise those who are voting between today and Friday which polling stations are correct. Voters in constituencies 1 to 9, Midland Heights Seventh-day Adventist Church in Hamilton Parish, North Shore Road. Voters in constituencies 10 to 18, the Pavilion at the National Sports Center on Roberts Avenue. Voters in constituencies 19 to 27, St. Paul's Church Centennial Hall, Court Street, Hamilton. Voters in constituencies 28 to 36, St. Mary's Church Hall in Warwick. just to be clear, across from the rubber tree, in case people don't know where that is. Voters who vote in constituencies 19 to 27 should be aware by now, hopefully, that there has been a change to the polling station for the advanced poll. Originally, it would have been at the Botanical Gardens at Horticultural Hall. However, for ease of access and other logistics, voters will now be voting, as I've said earlier, at St. Paul's AME Church, Centennial Hall, Court Street, Hamilton, and the best entrance to enter that church will be on the Court Street side. There are 2 advanced poll stations for voters who wish to vote on Saturday the 19th. If you live in constituencies 1 to 18, you will vote at the Bermuda College cafeteria. If you live in constituencies 19 to 36, you will vote at St. Mary's Anglican Church Hall, Middle Road, Warwick. While we are logistically prepared for the general election as an island, and we have faced and overcome the challenges of Hurricane Paulette, we must ensure that the COVID-19 protocols are maintained and followed during this period of time, during the voting. Accordingly, voters who attend polling stations, whether voting in the advanced poll or in the general election on October 1st, 2020, must adhere to the following protocols and regulations, which I will outline. Every person must adhere to physical distancing from the moment they enter the property, and that includes the parking lot. Every person must wear a mask and keep it on for the time they are present within the polling area. That means entering the property, while queuing, voting, and until they return back to their vehicle or transport that they have taken to the polling station. Whether outside or inside the polling station, shaking hands, fist bumps, elbow knocks, hugging are all strictly prohibited. Every person will be asked to sanitize their hands before entering the polling station with sanitizer that is provided at the polling station. The pandemic has affected so many Bermudians, and even though our handling of the pandemic has enabled a large amount of Bermudians to return to work, there are still many in our community that require additional support to continue their lives. The government has created the Supplemental Unemployment Benefit to provide ongoing assistance to Bermudians and families who need ongoing support and health insurance following the expiration of the COVID Emergency Unemployment Fund. The Minister of Labor, the Honorable Jason Hayward, has informed me that payments will be made for the Supplementary Unemployment Benefit before the end of this week. I know this will be welcome news to many families and persons in need, and I encourage those who need assistance to contact the Department of Financial Assistance to apply for the supplementary benefit. There is assistance available in case you need it, but you have to apply. There is another matter that has concerned a number of Bermudians that I also wish to address tonight. There are, right now, very uncertain times that we are dealing with and that are faced by this community. And we are deeply aware of the impact that this period has had to the mental health and well-being. When people's finances are in jeopardy, their home and food are threatened, or appear to be threatened. Accordingly, I wish to provide clarity over the recent confusion surrounding the administration and disbursement of pension payments. Ordinarily, payments that are paid out by a government check are delivered in the mail on the 15th of the month. However, during this month, government was closed, obviously, on the 14th and most of the 15th, meaning checks were not delivered in the mail as usual. Those checks will be delivered tomorrow on the 17th of September by mail. There has been a delay, obviously through no fault of the recipients, and we apologize for the delay, any concern or distress this has caused anyone. I should advise that persons who receive pension benefits online were paid on the 15th. And just for the sake of completeness and clarity, I should also state and add that each month there are 14,632 pension benefit payments made, but only about 170 are done by check. On another matter, I just received an update on buses from the Minister of Transport, the Honorable Neville Tyrrell. The Department of Public Transport, DPT, can confirm that the public bus service will resume normal operations Thursday, September 17, 2020. In addition, the school bus service will start Thursday, September 17, 2020. As a reminder, the 2020 school bus schedule has been updated and can be found at www.gov.bm/bus. DPT has extended the use of minibuses to ensure a reliable school bus service for the 2020-21 academic year, with DPT buses also available to supplement the school bus service where required. As previously outlined, COVID-19 mitigation protocols remain in effect for public bus service and will be implemented for the school bus service. Following these guidelines will help to ensure the safety and well-being of all passengers and staff, which remains the top priority of the Department of Public Transportation. Going back to the issue of payments, while I am aware that many persons have concerns about the reliability of internet banking technology, the Ministry of Finance urges, and I repeat, strongly urges, those who are paid by check to finally obtain online banking services to avoid any further delays like you would have experienced this week. As I conclude my remarks, I will add, once again, thanks and appreciation for all those persons who have had to be away from their families, who've had to take care of us through the storm and through the pandemic, through very difficult times. Those are the essential workers, such as the Royal Bermuda Regiment, the Bermuda Hospitals Board staff who take care of persons in our care homes, members of the Emergency Measures Organization who would have been working on 24-hour stints since the declaration of the hurricane was coming to our shores, and other government public officers who support that effort. Of course, we're talking about the Bermuda Police Service, we're talking about the Bermuda Fire Service and Rescue Service, and many other agencies who you may not see at these press conferences or see out there in the street, but continue to make sure that we are safe at home during these crises. I wish to offer thanks and gratitude from all the people of Bermuda to all of them, and I'm sure everybody here would agree with that. Thank you. As we all continue to watch the weather very closely, as we see the movement of Hurricane Teddy in the Atlantic, I urge everyone to start preparing now. Start preparing now. Make that list that you had for Hurricane Paulette, revise it. Repeat collecting the necessary supplies to prepare. Check on your family members, check on your neighbors, particularly the elderly. Check everyone. This is now the time for us to get ready. Bermudians, residents, we know how this is done. So we're urging you to continue the process of being prepared. I wish to thank you for receiving us today with this press conference, and we now open it up for questions.
Deputy Premier, we'll start with TNN.
Good evening,
Good evening,
Minister of
Mr.
Health.
Lindsay.
This one for you. You indicated one person was tested positive for COVID-19
Yes.
Today. This person was a visitor here. Are they still on island?
Yes, they tested positive having arrived on the 11th of September. It was their day 4 test, and they are still on island. They have been isolated, and contact tracing has commenced.
I don't know if you're aware, there was an incident at the airport today where 2 individuals were accidentally taken off the flight. And TNN understands that a woman actually said she got her results 2 days ago, and she tested positive. So that put everyone on the plane coming through the terminal at a panic. I'm not sure if this is the same individual, and she was with her husband. Is this the same case?
It is not the same case, no.
So you're not aware of this incident?
I am aware of the particular incident that you're referring to with respect to the person at the airport that was removed from the
Two
airline.
persons, husband
I
and
beg your
wife.
pardon? Yes, yes. Well, they weren't married, but in any event, two
Okay.
traveling companions.
Okay.
And the circumstances surrounding this are such that one of the individuals tested a very low positive on their day 10 test. However, the CDC, as well as Public Health England, will allow persons on day 10 to effectively test out and to be declared free of COVID and to allow them to travel. Bermuda has a very aggressive testing regime, but we also have a very, very conservative regime as it relates to when we allow our isolation to end. And as you would know, in Bermuda, our isolation is for a period of 14 days. So the Ministry of Health was in contact with CDC, recognizing these persons wanted to travel. CDC gave the permission for them to travel because it was their day 10, provided that they recognize the public health guidance, physical distancing, as well as wearing a mask. When they got to the airline pilot instructed them to depart the plane, which they have the right to do. Notwithstanding what CDC had said, the pilot indicated that they need to depart the plane.
Okay. Okay, I'll leave it right there. Deputy Premier, I did have some questions for the Premier, so I'm kind of, I wish him well in his soccer training with his son, but the response for him, I'm not sure if you're aware, but has government had any further word from the new owners of the Hampton Princess referencing reopening?
At this time, I'm not aware that there has been an answer or communication with the government. I'm sure at some later date we can provide an answer to that, Mr. Lindsay.
And previously, I did state that a former MP had mentioned in a social media post information about this particular facility not opening for 2 years. Can you dispel the information circulating publicly from this previous former MP?
No, I do not believe that would be appropriate for that to be considered official information, since it came from someone who certainly isn't a part of the government. But I'm sure that further updates can be given on the situation related to that hotel in due course by the Premier or the Minister of Finance or by the Minister of Tourism, who is also the Premier, of course.
Will the government need to borrow more money to assist unemployment if hotels remain closed for longer periods?
I think that's a question you can put to the Ministry of Finance or the Minister of Labor, who is handling the unemployment benefit programs, and what they see as the situation.
With another Hurricane Teddy, heading our way, if the impending Hurricane Teddy causes major damage, would the government consider postponing the election?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Lindsay. I'd like to make something clear. The government does not decide when an election is held or runs an election. That is run by the parliamentary registrar in conjunction with the governor. It's the government that issues a writ of election. So any decisions about that would need to be put to the parliamentary registrar as it relates to the conditions for changing the date, or that, I would respectfully suggest that you put that to His Excellency the Governor or to the Parliamentary Registrar. But as you can see, the Governor, I believe, made a statement today on this
Yes,
matter
yes.
and has made it very clear. I think that can stand as the answer for your question, or if you
At present.
if you need any further clarification on the future, you should consult with His Excellency the Governor and the Parliamentary Registrar.
Thank you, Deputy Premier, the World Gazette.
Good evening, folks. So thanks. Yeah, Jonathan Bell from the Gazette. Royal Gazette, sorry. Oh, yeah, I think a lot of these, Minister Wilson, will be for yourself. Obviously, the type of patient that we've been seeing testing positive and needing treatment with COVID-19 has changed over the months. But it is something that I see people wondering about. We've had very few. It's been quite some time since anyone has needed hospital treatment. Deaths have remained static for some time indeed. I'm going to guess that it has a lot to do with travel. You know, people are fit enough to travel. They're probably going to remain healthy. But just for the benefit of readers, could you walk us through a bit of that about the reason why we seem to have been so lucky in terms of people in critical care or being in hospital?
I think the best way to answer that is not so much a matter of luck, but a matter of preparedness. And I'm sorry. I think the best way to answer that is not so much luck, but a matter of preparedness. And you've heard us speak about the aggressive testing regime that we have in Bermuda, and the fact that we test all incoming travelers and test them frequently is a testament to why we are being able to not only detect COVID, but also recognizing that all travelers that enter Bermuda that are non-residents must have a pre-test. So if they have a negative PCR test, they're permitted to arrive in Bermuda. If it's positive, they are not. So we're stopping them at the gate. So our surveillance is critical, and we are doing that in a very responsive role by doing that, by stopping people at the entrance.
If I can have a supplemental, you know, we've had people testing positive, and it seems that they've just remained under active public health monitoring.
That's correct. I think that the fact that we are not only identifying the cases, but as you've indicated, as we've just seen a positive today, the reality is that as long as they follow public health monitoring, and we are giving them advice with respect to how to best take care of their symptoms, which, as you know, is Tylenol or acetaminophen and rest, then we're able to, address that. Fortunately, we have not had a situation where we have community transmission or local transmission any longer. And those, when we see spikes in local transmission, then we have to be more concerned, because that could potentially affect our more vulnerable population and those persons with chronic diseases as well as age. So if we can try to best prevent it from entering, then we can reduce the likelihood of having local transmission.
Got a question on nursing homes. It's probably two questions. To begin with, we've been told that they remain in phase 2 of restrictions. That's no visitors in the building, strict social distancing, residents can't eat together or participate in day activities. We're told the isolation is taking a toll on people mentally. Given that they're not seeing anyone from outside except staff, I guess question 1 from that, why can seniors in homes not form what they call a bubble, allowing people to at least sit together?
Thank you, Jonathan. I want to answer that question by clarifying something. As you rightly said, we are in phase 2 with respect to rest homes, so visitors are permitted. They are permitted, though, outside and using physical distancing. So the issue of saying that those persons are in isolation can be countered by the fact that we are allowing visitation in phase 2. With respect to some of the other public health measures that are implemented in the rest homes, you can appreciate all of our institutions, and in particular the institutions which have our seniors, obviously are housing our most vulnerable population. So we have to take steps, public health guidance, as well as based on international best practice, that will help to minimize the spread of COVID. And unfortunately, part of that does involve some somewhat drastic measures, but it's inaccurate to say that there's no visitation, because they are allowed to visit outdoors and with physical distancing.
Thank you. And the second part to that, does the Department of Health have a timeline that they envisage at all for when seniors' restrictions can get eased?
Thank you, Jonathan. There is, under our incident command, certain individuals that are charged with oversight of the nursing homes, as well as the phases and the implementation of the particular public health requirements. They work very closely with the nursing homes and are constantly in dialogue with the nursing homes to see what would be the best avenue insofar as addressing potentially moving into phase 3. But those are dialogues and conversations that happen regularly with the caregivers and the administrators at the table.
Thank you. Folks have been curious about the use of tracking bracelets. If we're definitely tracking, under what circumstances? Are you able to speak to how much they are being used and the circumstances they're being used when they were deployed?
Certainly. I don't know the number of how many persons are being used, but they are being deployed on individuals that arrive in Bermuda, residents that arrive in Bermuda that don't have pre-test. So upon your arrival, you have to be subjected to the PCR test, the nasopharyngeal, and B, you are fitted with one of the tracking bracelets.
Thanks. Last week we heard of stricter COVID testing for people who are coming in. Apparently there were some folks that were attempting to evade using tests that were not really the proper type of tests. I believe this is a question Owen put to you last week. Looking into that, with the stricter regime that we've got, have we found any people who had, dubious pre-tests who did turn out to be positive? And I stand to be correct, I believe it was the 9th of September, we changed the processes as it relates to the TAs, and we required that all persons that completed their TA were required to upload a PCR test, and that within 24 hours that TA would be approved, and that would allow the team to confirm the validity of the laboratory that completed the test, et cetera. And I mentioned that uploading had to include such circumstances such as the name of the individual, their date of birth, identifying characteristics, as well as the laboratory, as well as, of course, the negative PCR results. As a result of that, we have seen persons that have attempted to download. Somebody tried to download a Chinese restaurant menu. Of course, it was denied, and their entry was denied. However, if a person makes a mistake, for example, and they upload the document, but it might be tilted, so to speak, so that you don't see the full name, then, which is why we're requiring persons to do it between 3 days and 1 day of travel, requiring 24 hours for authorization, then the team will contact them and say, look, Jonathan, we received your TA, however, we cannot see the full name on your test, and it'll allow you to resubmit the test and upload that. Thank you kindly.
Deputy Premier, we'll now go to Bermuda Broadcasting.
Good evening, Don Burgess, Bermuda Broadcasting. We've just had Hurricane Paulette, and Hurricane Teddy could come close, Deputy Premier. And meanwhile, people are out voting in the advance polls. How are we securing the ballots in such extraordinary circumstances?
Thank you for the question, and I'll further repeat the clarification I gave earlier as to it is not the government that runs the actual process of the election. It is the parliamentary registrar, and also under the supervision of the governor and the governor and the government providing support to that process. So that process would be organized by the registrar. We certainly know that those ballots are kept under secure lock by the registry at a undisclosed location, and it is under 24-hour surveillance. But any further questions about that, I would encourage you to put those to the parliamentary registrar.
Okay, thank you. Health Minister, Hurricane Paulette obviously slowed down testing. Have we caught up today?
Yes, we have. For the most part, we have caught up. For the most part, yes, we have caught up. There were a few persons that weren't able to be tested, but they've already been rescheduled.
Thank you. Aside from testing delays, what extraordinary challenges do hurricanes pose in the midst of a pandemic?
I think perhaps the greatest challenge is that people are so focused on the hurricane and hurricane preparedness that they forget that we are in the midst of a pandemic. So therefore, the physical distancing and the mask wearing and the proper hand hygiene and sanitation has to be continued, notwithstanding that we're preparing for a hurricane. So I'd like to remind persons that as you're going into to purchase your plywood or your nails or whatever else you need to do for your preparations, we need to remember that we are still in the midst of a pandemic, and our physical distancing and our other public health guidelines, such as wearing a mask, must be maintained.
Thank you. Will people be allowed to get tested earlier than scheduled on Saturday and Sunday with Teddy approaching?
The Minister of Health, as I've indicated, we have communicated with those persons that are scheduled for Saturday and Sunday. We're constantly watching the weather as well as you, and we are in contact with those individuals so that if the testing has to be moved up or back, then we will be communicating that accordingly. And again, if anybody, for whatever reason, is unable to receive their emails because of internet down or whatever, we invite them to please contact the COVID hotline so that they can get further instructions.
We're approaching the flu season. Can the flu shot help in the fight against COVID?
The flu shot actually will help in the fight against the flu. So I would encourage persons that when the flu becomes available, that they will get it. However, it is important that we guard against all things that could possibly adversely impact our healthcare system, such as the flu. And we recognize that year over year, we have quite a lot of hospitalizations as a result of the flu, and recognizing now that we're in the midst of a pandemic, I would encourage persons when the flu shot becomes available for them to get the flu. Likewise, when a COVID vaccine becomes available, then that will be announced, and we'll encourage persons to get that vaccine as well.
Thank you. My last question for tonight. When will the lab be functional at the college?
I'm not sure if the Minister of Education can yield to that.
That is still being worked on, and regular updates will be provided to the public as that process continues.
Thank you all for your time tonight.
Deputy Premier, there are no more questions.
Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. The next press conference, you will have the Premier available to you. But I wish to thank everyone for their appearance tonight. And certainly, I'd like to ask that everyone continue to prepare for Hurricane Teddy. You will continue to have reports from all the relevant sources, Bermuda Weather Service and others that you can source electronically, and certainly from our local news agencies. Certainly will also provide information and updates as to the progress of the storm. I think we're all praying for perhaps this may not be as destructive as is predicted, but please prepare. As we prepared for COVID, please prepare for the impending weather. Thank you, everyone, and good night.